create a community of people who help each other and support each other. And in that regard, I need to, first of all, start recording. And then, oh, it is recording. Okay. Um, and say thank you to, first of all, to Elliot Kola from the Georgetown University Department of Arabic and Islamic Studies for hosting us, and also to Mimi Kirk, who is not here because she's teaching right now, for also making this talk a reality from the with the support of the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies. And I'm just going to um, give it to Elliot to introduce our presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaren, and thank you also to Mimi Kirk for organizing this talk today. And um, so on behalf of my department, the Department of Arabic and Islamic Studies at Georgetown University, and the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies and the Global Academy at MESA, I'm really pleased today to introduce Dr. Ahmad Qabaha, who will be presenting a talk on a very remarkable poem. This poem by the great Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish, Khutbat al-Hindi al-Ahmar. Dr. Qabaha is currently Associate Professor of English at An-Najah University in Nablus in occupied Palestine. He is also, he has previously been Department Chair and Dean of the Humanities at An-Najah. And prior to that, he taught English in UNRWA schools. Dr. Qabaha's teaching and research focus on literature and art with a particular interest in questions of voice, displacement, and resistance in the contemporary world. His first book, Exile and Expatriation in Modern American and Palestinian Writing from Palgrave in 2018, interrogates displacement in modern American and Palestinian literature and distinguishes between exile and expatriation, challenging romanticized notions of exile common in American literature and foregrounding the political realities of mobility in a post-colonial/colonial context. Dr. Qabaha's work listens attentively to voices that have long been marginalized, especially Palestinian voices, while charting traumas and tensions that emerge whenever you do comparative analysis. Dr. Qabaha is also co-editor of another book, Post-Millennial Palestine, Literature, Memory, and Resistance, from Liverpool University Press, a collection that explores how Palestinian writers and artists imagine memory and resistance in light of ongoing spatial and temporal dispossession, regional instability, and the collapse of the peace process. This volume introduces fresh critical approaches to understanding how post-millennial Palestinian literature responds to shifting political and historical conditions. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Qabaha. Please take it away.
Thank you, Prof. Elliot, for this amazing introduction. And before I start, I should thank the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies and School of Foreign Service, Department of Arabic and Islamic Studies at Georgetown University, as well as MESA Global Academy. I would like to thank in particular Jaren, Elliot, and Mimi for hosting this talk and for putting all their kind efforts into making this happen. Also, I would like to thank my colleagues, students, and friends who are joining this talk. This is actually a part of a paper I'm working on. It's around 8,000 words. Don't worry, I'm not going to read all of it. So it's just 3,000 words or so. So I understand that you might have some questions about it because I will not be able to read the whole paper. And I'm focusing, as Elliot said, on just one poem by Mahmoud Darwish that connects the struggle of Palestinians and Native American people. The title of it is Genocide, Ecocide, and Scholasticide, and the Palestinian Native American in Mahmoud Darwish's poetry. So, as set forth in the Genocide Convention of 1948 and as interpreted by international courts, the crime of genocide requires that a perpetrator kill, seriously harm, or inflict conditions of life calculated to bring about the destruction of a group in whole or in part, with the intent to destroy the group as such. Jaren, can you please move to the next slide? Israel's actions in and regarding Gaza since October 7, 2023 violate the Genocide Convention. Specifically, Israel has committed genocidal acts of killing, causing serious harm to, and inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about the physical destruction of Palestinians in Gaza, a group that forms a substantial part of the Palestinian people. Next slide, please, Jaren. On the other hand, ecocide is the destruction of large areas of the natural environment as a consequence of a human activity. The independent expert panel for the legal definition of ecocide describes it as unlawful or wanton acts committed with knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood of severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment being caused by those acts. Next slide, please. The term scholasticide, sometimes used interchangeably with ecocide or epistemicide, refers to the systematic destruction of educational institutions, scholars, knowledge systems, especially in the context of war, over, or occupation. In this talk, I eco-critically explore these concepts in Mahmoud Darwish's poem The Red Indian's Penultimate Speech to the White Man, in which he reflects on the genocide, ecocide, and scholasticide in his community, his Palestinian community has witnessed while comparing their responses to those acts with the responses of Native American people in Chief Seattle's speech. Eco-criticism is the study of the relationship between literature and the physical environment. David Skulsberg incorporates a transnational dimension to the discourse of environmental justice by asserting that eco-criticism has more recently started to show more inclination to examine the global nature of environmental concerns. Other critics emphasize the commitment of eco-critics to ethical engagements. With such a slant of activism, eco-critical practice exhibits some overlap with other politically engaged critical approaches such as post-colonial scholarship. Darwish's poem provides an instructive portrayal of the human and ecological damage inflicted by settler colonialism, and more significantly, it communicates environmental ethics that transcend restrictive or particular territory. Darwish's poem expresses an inclusive perspective that requires appreciation of the interconnection between the national and ecological struggle of the colonized, and the poet represents the eco-critical central argument that environmental issues are integral issues of our existence and resistance. In fact, eco-critics have repeatedly noted the complementary relation between man and nature in Chief Seattle's words, which the poet refers to in his poem in response to the U.S. President Franklin Pierce's letter to him in 1854 during the westward expansion to buy the territories in which they were settled, offering in return the creation of a reservation for his tribe. Seattle's speech emphasizes that the white man's vision of the land is consistent with the colonialist ideology of manifest destiny, which correlates with the Zionist ideology that aims to occupy new territories according to providential design. Darwish has appropriated in his poem segments of Seattle's speech to expose the great extent to which the biological and cultural diversity has been compromised in the colonial context so as to stage political resistance in the face of the ecological threats posed by the murderous tools of modernity. Thus, his text offers a unique blend of post-colonial and ecological perspective where nature is not perceived as the other, but rather as a living entity which shares the same fate as that of the natives entangled by the apocalyptic consequences of the colonial project. He says, "Here the eagle died depressed in suicide. Here the strangers conquered us, and nothing remains for us in the new time. Here our bodies evaporate cloud by cloud into space. Here our souls glitter star by star in the space of the song." The poet's reflection on the destruction of both human and non-human communities by colonialist practices is embedded in his rumination on the sacred and intimate relation between humans and other creatures, wherein the elimination of one of the components of the ecosystem will mean the elimination of the others. Darwish appeals to the colonialists to act less violently or more humanely, works to destabilize claims to the superiority of the civilized discourses of colonialism over the simplicity of the populations. He says, our names are trees of the deity's speech, and birds that soar higher than the rifle. Do not sever the trees of the name, you comers from the sea in war. And do not exhale your horses aflame in the plain. Driven by claims of progress and enlightenment, colonial interventions have repeatedly enacted ecocide for the thicket, the eagles, the buffalo, and many other plants and beasts. These interventions divided the whole, disconnected everything from everything else. This demise is associated in Native American oral traditions with the coming of the settlers, which marks, I quote, the ending of peace and primal unity and the beginning of loss and division. In the old days, before Columbus discovered us, as they say, one White River Sioux story goes, we were even closer to the animals than we are now. Many people could understand the animal languages. They could talk to a bird, gossip with a butterfly. Animals could change themselves into people and people into animals. Darwish's textual proclivity towards ecological reservation resonates with a post-colonial eco-critical overtone that seeks to cultivate a global awareness about the continuity of the ecological risks inherent in the colonial project with reference to Columbus's arrival to America. Darwish says in the poem, Columbus the Free has the right to find India in any sea, and the right to name our ghosts a Beaver or Indian, and he's able to break the compass of the sea then mend it along with the errors of the northerly wind, but does not believe that humans are equal, like air and water, outside the map's kingdom. While Darwish scrutinizes in particular Columbus's experience in America, he universalizes this experience to instruct the colonizers that all men are born equal, and racial hierarchy is man's product, not God's. This transnational overtone becomes crucial in staging solidarity and writing the oppressive space in ways that redress the injustice which anchor the experiences of the colonized. Next slide, please, Jerry. In assuming the persona of the Native American, Darwish's text demonstrates Palestine's increasing reach in its solidarity with the oppressed. He draws on moral and human struggles which construe his own identity not as national or particular, but as human, not in solidarity with other oppressed nations and ecology, but as them. Darwish universalizes Columbus's experience so as to say that the ecological destruction caused by today's colonial practices dates back to that experience. This can be interpreted as an allusion to the contemporary atrocities of settler colonialism. Roger Waters argues that on the surface the poem narrates the last speech of the Native American to the white man, but it also speaks to Darwish's beloved Palestine and its indigenous people. In fact, it's relevant to all victims of settler colonialism everywhere. And also, according to which it stages solidarity, advocacy, and activism. And this is something I saw in Chicago last year on campus. It was an interfaith prayer. We had Jews and Muslims who are supporting peace and who are advocating Palestinian rights for self-determination. It was really amazing, and like we recited something from Darwish and his poetry that calls for such solidarity across faith and across nations. Darwish probably used these chronicles of disposition to amplify his sense of Palestinians' predicament as a human and global one. His consciousness is cosmic-oriented, and accordingly, the particular cause of his nation becomes part of an ever-present struggle of the oppressed. Darwish's distinct and powerful poetic language thus bears the weight of a human and ecological suffering. It embodies a human and ecological oppression, negation, and resistance. Such a practice can be seen as imperialist, according to Darwish, and racist against all components of the ecology. This form of ecological imperialism is called by the American environmental philosopher Dean Curtin environmental racism, which he defines as the connection in theory and the practice of race and the environment so that the oppression of one is connected to and supported by the oppression of the other. And here Darwish says in the poem, O master of horses, teach your horse to apologize to the spirit of nature for what you did to our trees. Ah, my sister tree, they have tortured you as they tortured me. And allow me to read it in Arabic. يا سيد الخيل يا سيد الخيل علم حصانك أن يعتذر لروح الطبيعة عما صنعت بأشجارنا. يا أختي الشجرة لقد عذبوك كما عذبوني. According to Darwish, European justification for invasion and colonization of America and other parts of the world proceeded from the basis that non-European lands, people, and animals are insignificant without Western intervention. He says in the poem, right here the strangers conquered salt, the sea merged with the clouds, and the strangers conquered the wheat chaff in us, laid out lines for lightning and electricity. Here the eagle died depressed in suicide. Here the strangers conquered us, and nothing remains for us in the new time. This colonialist attitude, according to Darwish, has historically been conscripted for the purposes of exploiting nature while minimizing non-human claims to a shared earth. Darwish mourns the loss of nature elements, corn husks and eagle, and the violation of ecological system by colonial technology and modernity, lightning and electricity. Colonizers have reconstructed nature to create a world that features their violent technological and mechanical civilization. Val Plum would call this practice hegemonic centrism, which accounts not only for environmental racism, but also for those forms of institutionalized speciesism that continue to be used to rationalize the exploitation of animal and animalized human others in the name of a human and reason-centered culture that is at least a couple of millennia old. The extraction of natural resources, the forced changing in human and animal settlement patterns, and the dissolution of traditional means of arranging and using land mean for Darwish a cosmic loss, an abyss that impels Darwish to communicate an eco-human warning for the colonizer. O white master, where are you taking my people and yours? Into what abyss? Is this boat bristling with aircraft carriers and jets, consigning the earth to what fathomless pit will you descend? An ideology for the insane. Again in Arabic, إلى أين يا سيد البيض؟ تأخذ شعبي وشعبك إلى أي هاوية يأخذ الأرض هذا الربوت المدجج بالطائرات وحاملة الطائرات إلى أي هاوية رحبة تصعدون وأيديولوجيا الجنون. Darwish presents the ecological harmony as the source of more than just basic human needs. It provides not just bread but also continuity. This call suggests a cosmic identification and consciousness, wherein the colonizer must realize that his practices are not environmentally ethical, and its mechanical and technological victory resides on a cosmic loss, a loss for both the colonizer and the colonized. Darwish reminds the colonizer who has the power to orient the world that natural settings of both humans and non-humans are intrinsic to their philosophies of being in the world. The ideology that Darwish describes as insane underlies an insane, violent, oppressive, unethical, and racist quest for domination over humans and their nature. Once conquest and settlement have been accomplished, or at least once administrative structures had been set up, a deliberate violation of the ecosystem is reinforced under unequal governing powers. Please, Sharon, move to the next slide. Darwish perhaps makes a pessimistic prophecy that Palestinians might share the same tragedy as Native American people. Darwish, the penultimate speech to the white man, the Red Indians' penultimate speech to the white man, was written a year before the PLO and Israel signed Oslo Accords in 1993. And here we see the famous photo of Yasser Arafat, Bill Clinton, and Yitzhak Rabin, which Darwish refused and described elsewhere as surrender accords. The Oslo Accords granted the PA a limited responsibility of self-governing some areas of Gaza and the West Bank, Issues such as sovereignty, the rights of refugees, and the status of Jerusalem were, however, postponed. The failure of the apparent peace process served as one of the underlying roots for the escalation of the colonial violence in the present. The concessions made by the Palestinian leadership by Oslo Accords have resulted in a postponed ending to the Israeli occupation and thus a prolonged occupation. As Sarah Roy argues, the structural relationship between occupier and occupied and the gross asymmetries in power that attended were not dismantled by the Accords but reinforced and strengthened. Can you please, Sharon, share the video? It's short, but it's very telling and very relevant. No voice, Sharon, and the video is now playing. If it's not working, we can skip it. But we can't see the video and no voice there.
Let me try something else.
Okay,
Just give me a second. Let's see. Oh, my laptop is glitching today.
that's fine.
Give me a second. Okay, that's not good. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, no
Okay.
problem. I can talk about it. No need, I think.
Um,
Save
my
time.
my screen is completely gone.
Okay,
So,
no problem. So
okay.
here I wanted to show a video about how Israeli settlers stole a house in Sheikh Jarrah. It's owned by Palestinians in East Jerusalem, and they are supported by Israeli army, which proves that Zionism is such an illegitimate entity that steals the property of other people and it sustains its existence with illegal practices and ethnic cleansing of Palestine. And this is something Mahmoud Darwish warned a Palestinian leadership against when they were in the process of signing Oslo Accords. And like he relates this or he refers to this in the poem in one way or another by referring to the exodus of 1948 and the continuity of ethnic cleansing. I mean here the exodus of 1948 has been a central element of the displacement and disposition of Palestinians known as the Nakba, during which 800,000 Palestinians were expelled and hundreds of Palestinian villages were destroyed and others subjected to the ongoing process of ethnic cleansing and genocide. Most apparently what's going on right now in Gaza. The genocide in Gaza persists with around 70,000 Palestinian people killed and 2 million people displaced. Unfortunately, Israel doubts these numbers, which functions as a permission to allow the civilized war machine, ironically, to get the job done at the expense of human and non-human entities. As Darwish writes in his penultimate speech, and if our murder is imperative, then don't kill the animals that have befriended us. Don't kill our yesterday. You will lack a truce with our ghosts in barren winter nights. You will lack a gray sun and waning moon for the crime to appear this festive on the movie screen. And in the silence for the sake of Gaza, Darwish writes, the enemy hates Gaza to death and fears it to criminality and tries to sink it into the sea, the desert, or blood, and hence its relatives and friends love it with a coyness that amounts to jealousy and fear it at times because Gaza is the brutal lesson and a shining example for enemies and friends alike. The relentless assaults on Gaza have not only caused immense human suffering, but have also inflicted severe and lasting damage on the environment, transforming the region into a toxic wasteland. The environmental demolition is a deliberate strategy that compounds the humanitarian crisis and poses a long-term threat to the region's sustainability and the health of its inhabitants. Following October 7, 2023, the continuing attacks on civilians in Gaza, infrastructure, and agriculture have only worsened the environmental crisis. David Boyd, the UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights and the Environment, noted that Israel's military operations result in massive carbon pollution, contaminating air, water, and soil with toxic substances. The environmental crisis in Gaza is a stark reminder of the interconnectedness between genocide and environmental degradation, as well as human suffering. As international bodies continue to document and condemn these environmental crimes, it's imperative to push for comprehensive assessments and restoration efforts, but also to speak about the Scholasticide in Gaza. Can you move 2 slides, Jaren?
Um,
The concept of Scholasticide first appeared in 2009 in response to attacks by Israeli military against the Ministry of Education and multiple schools in Gaza. The Guardian has defined Scholasticide as the systematic destruction by Israeli forces of centers of education near to Palestinian society. In light of Israel's recent assault on Gaza, the idea of scholasticide has been supported by academics. By 3 of Israel's actions, the devastation of educational infrastructure, the continuous military assault on universities and schools, and the persecution of Palestinian scholars and dissenting scholars at Israeli universities. The first and second actions have spoken for themselves over the course of the war since October, with the sheer amount of destruction across Gaza and the future of education remaining bleak for Palestinian scholars and students. Furthermore, many prominent Palestinian scholars were recently killed by Israeli strikes or offenses. The scientist, researcher, and president of the Islamic University of Gaza, Sufyan Tayyeh, was murdered along with his family in last December. Similarly, the renowned professor, writer, and poet Rifat al-Arrir was killed in airstrikes in Gaza in the same month. Al-Arrir was known for writing about his Gazan experience, leaving behind the emotional poem If I Must Die, Let It Be a Tale, shortly before the airstrike that killed him and the 6 members of his family. While the specific term scholasticide is more recent, Mahmoud Darwish's poetry and commentary are foundational expressions of the cultural and intellectual struggle against the systematic destruction of Palestinian education and knowledge systems. In the penultimate speech, Darwish draws on the Native American people's experience with cultural destruction, wherein the European colonization started by Columbus aimed to impose European values, language, and Christianity, while devaluing and eliminating existing indigenous knowledge systems, histories, and cultural practices. For many indigenous people, Columbus symbolizes the beginning of genocide, cultural destruction, and systematic oppression that continued for centuries. Following Israel's 1982 invasion of Lebanon and the destruction of the Palestine Research Center in Beirut, Darwish made a powerful statement that encapsulates the essence of scholasticide. He says, he who steals land does not surprise by stealing a library. He who kills thousands of innocent civilians does not surprise by killing paintings. This quotation highlights the link between physical occupation, the destruction of cultural heritage, libraries, archives, art, and the broader violence against Palestinian people. Darwish emphasizes here the importance of education culture, and memory in the face of attempts to erase Palestinian identity and history, Scholasticide. His poetry itself is an act of resistance, preserving memory and fostering a collective identity among displaced Palestinians. He says in the penultimate speech to the white man, "Our souls are higher, our pastures sacred, and the stars are illuminated speech. If you stared into them, you would read our story entire. We were born here between water and fire, and will become reborn in the clouds." Darwish sees poetry and intellectual thought as vital tools for survival and mobilization. In his poem, he underscores his belief in the power of knowledge and art to challenge injustice, contrasting it with the brutality of conflict. The white master will not understand, Darwish says in his poem. The white master will not understand the ancient words here, in spirits emancipated between trees and sky. So, who will raise our voices to brittle rain in clouds? Who will wash the light after us, and who will dwell in our temple after us? Who will preserve our rituals from the metallic roar? Darwish critiques the logic of elimination that drives settler colonialism, which involves destroying the educational, cultural, and knowledge systems of the indigenous people to make it difficult for them to rebuild and survive. He continues by addressing the colonizer in the penultimate speech to the white man. "Will you not memorize a bit of poetry to hold the slaughter? ألا تحفظون قليلا من الشعر لكي توقفوا المذبحة? Were you not born of women? Did you not suckle as we did the milk of longing for mothers? Did you not wear wings as we did to join the swallows? We used to announce spring to you, so don't draw your weapons." These questions are not posed to elicit a direct answer from the colonizer, but rather to provoke introspection and agreement from the listener or reader. The initial question, "Will you not memorize a bit of poetry to hold the slaughter? ألا تحفظون قليلا من الشر لكي توقفوا المذبحة?" immediately establishes a stark contrast between the beauty and contemplative nature of poetry and the brutality of slaughter. This juxtaposition suggests that art and culture possess a power to mitigate or even prevent violence, implying that a refusal to engage with such a simple act, which is memorizing poetry, in the face of such a grave consequence, slaughter, is illogical or morally reprehensible. The use of slaughter rather than a more neutral term like war or conflict intensifies the emotional impact, emphasizing the indiscriminate and brutal nature of the violence. The subsequent questions, "Were you not born of women? Did you not suckle as we did the milk of longing for mothers?" directly appeal to the shared human experience of birth and early nurturing. These questions tap into fundamental aspects of a human existence that transcend cultural, political, or ideological divides. By reminding the audience of their origins, the speaker attempts to establish a common ground of vulnerability, dependence, and the universal bond with a mother. The phrase "milk for longing for mothers" is particularly poignant, evoking not just physical sustenance, but also emotional connection, comfort, and perhaps a primal yearning for peace and security. This appeal to shared maternal experience is a classic example of pathos aiming to evoke empathy and compassion, and also resistance through art. To that end, Palestinians resist displacement and erasure through art and narrative, determined to stay steadfast, according to the poet Mahmoud Darwish. He says the only value for the occupied is the extent of his resistance to occupation, which could take different forms, one of which is adopted by Palestinians from Native Americans, to go back to the connection I'm making here, a dance by Native American people that reflects their attachment to the land and their aspiration for independence and autonomy. Can you please share the video on the last slide? Is it possible?
We will see if it worked this
Okay,
time.
no problem. No problem. I think this is the last thing I wanted to say. Or if you can give me the co-host, I can share it.
It should work this time.
Okay.
Summer's great for one thing, catching you off guard.
Summer moves fast. 1 minute, it's iced coffee in the park. Next, it's wet grass, surprise rain, and something sharp in your sandal.
That's why I wear vesties.
They're 100% waterproof. No coat.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to share something that suggests the interconnection between Palestinian dance art, I mean, and that of Native American people. And the comments in Arabic here suggest that this dance by this Palestinian guy in the face of Israeli soldiers was adopted from Native American people, which suggests that they are the rightful owners of the land. And the Dabka here, the dance, suggests their rootedness, attachment to the land, resistance, challenging discrimination, challenging brutality, imprisonment, and so on and so forth. And this is something that Native American people did even in support of Palestine. This dance was also practiced recently by Native American people in America while asking for ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, for that talk. We have quite a bit of time today for questions and answers. And I would like to take advantage of the fact that I have the microphone to ask just the beginning one, just to point out a couple of moments of the poem I really like. There's and ask a question. In the third section of the poem, he says, "Lakum rabbukum walana rabbana walakum dinukum walana dinuna." Right?
Yeah.
And so he's throughout the poem, he comes back to
Yeah.
these Quranic verses and so on as describing two, as
Yeah.
you're putting it, two ways of
Yeah.
life, two faiths, and so on.
Yeah.
And I just want to kind of ask, sort of, it seems to me that, and what you're arguing and what this material shows is that two ways of being in the world.
Yeah.
And it seems that one of them has to do and what joins them is a
Yeah.
shared experience of being on the receiving end of settler colonialism.
Yeah.
And the idea that settler colonialism has this inherent developmentalist ideology
Yeah.
of control, command, and domination, right?
Yeah.
That's rooted in the sense that the human is not just separate from the world, but controls and dominates the world,
Yeah.
and juxtaposing that, right, with the idea of living in the world, with the world, in a relationship of interdependence. And that just, it's so beautiful in this poem, the way it comes out.
Yeah.
Um, so I want you to, if you don't mind, in the sixth, well, you don't have to, but I want my favorite moment of the poem is at the
Yeah.
end of the sixth section,
Yeah.
where he says, I'm just going to kind of skip to the very last lines of that sixth section, where he says, "Through everything that besieges you, white ones, we will look as dead who live, dead who return, who
Yeah.
disclose the secrets.
Yeah.
So grant the earth despite until it tells the truth, all the truth,
Yeah.
about you and about us,
Yeah.
and about us and about you."
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I think this is really an insightful comment, and I keep reciting the stanzas that you referred to in my mind all the time. I love this part of the poem too. Um, I think in relation to لكم ربكم ولنا ربنا, you have your own God and we have ours. I think Quranic allusions, or Darwish refers a lot to Quranic allusions, or uses Quranic allusions in his poetry. But in that particular instance, I think he wanted to come up with a certain secular attitude or perspective on land, on narratives. And I think he shares with Edward Said, perhaps, like his comment on the Zionist ideology that we were chosen by God, this land is ours, and it's providential, and we are the promised people, this is the promised land, and so on. And like he's asking, what about our God? Like, uh, weren't you created by the same God? Didn't the same God like give us the same right to this land? Um, and he's trying to be very critical of dogmatic perspectives and attitudes and the emphasis of Zionism on attachment, on putting roots in that land and thinking of it as exclusively theirs. Especially in his poetry, he talked a lot about coexistence and the possibility of coexistence, and he tried to gauge different ways of thinking about the land and like the competing narratives over this land. And then when he moves to the last bit that you read from, like he's like Mauta Yamutun, and they will come back again, they will be resurrected, because he wanted to like to say the colonized will continue the narrative even if you kill us. Like he perhaps refers to certain ideological inputs by early Zionists and like those who established Israel, like Golda Meir saying, the old people will die and the young people will forget. He's saying, no, we will die, but we will like transfer the narrative to young people, and we will continue our struggle through narrative, through art, and through different means. And also, I think he connects this to Columbus when he says like لماذا تواصل حربك من القبر تواصلون حرب الأباد من القبر. و this annihilation, he sees this annihilation referring to Columbus from the grave. Like he wanted to make really a huge connection between what's happening to Palestinians and what happened to Native American people, especially after Oslo, as I mentioned in my talk. Like he's saying, like Israelis like have won the war in one way or another. They have the power, military power, I mean here, and they are taking the land by force. They are displacing us. They are killing us. Genocide, ecocide, scholasticide, and so on. But he's trying to like to make people aware of what's going on in Palestine, especially like our narrative was not that visible and was not like Israelis tried to say it's conflict. It's impossible to talk about this conflict. It's difficult to explain. So he wanted to make this connection with Native American people to call it genocide, to call it ecocide, and to make people understand like what's happening in Palestine, because he wanted to say the same Europeans who went to America, displaced people and killed them and built their state, as it were, there. The same group came to Palestine and they are taking the model of Columbus and the other settlers. I hope I addressed your comment
Yeah.
or.
Yeah. I have a question from the audience. This is from the translator and poet and scholar Sharif al-Musa,
Yeah.
who asks, has any indigenous writer in the United States analyzed this poem? And then he also asks, is there a danger in essentializing Palestinians as somehow ecological people? Yeah, so two questions. Yeah, these are great
Okay, great.
questions.
These are really great questions. Regarding translation, I'm not sure. I think the only translation of this
Not
poem was made by
study, not translation, but study. Has any
study.
indigenous writers, any indigenous intellectuals in the United States sort of
Mhm.
written back and written about this poem?
I'm not sure. I need to double check, but I think there is an article by Ilan Bay on Palestinians and Native American people that has been published recently. I haven't read it, to be honest. I read just the introduction, but I think there is a reference to this in his article. And essentializing Palestinians as ecological people, I'm not sure if I understood this question, but I mean, no, I think Darwish here is trying to say there was a pre-existing community before Israel established itself. Uh, this is an indigenous community that had its own land, its own practices, its own rituals, its own language, its own traditions. And here he's trying to define Israel and what it did during the Nakba, 1948, as an Israeli settler colonial regime. And I mean here to say settler colonialism because they wanted to come and settle and to take the land by the force. They killed more than 800,000 Palestinians. They also displaced people and so on and so forth. And Darwish wanted to write a counter narrative to the Israeli settler colonial narrative that we are coming to this land to improve ecology, to for the sake of civilization, to turn the desert blue. And I'm quoting from early Zionist narratives. And he's saying, no, what you did is you are destroying ecology. You built factories, you with modernity, with electricity, as I mentioned, and we were a people with its own economy, with its own agriculture, and we had a great civilization before you came, and you can't claim that you are bringing civilization, you are bringing education and improvement and industry and so on. You are destroying the ecology, and in our resistance against your own destruction, we are also resisting against the destruction not only of the human communities but also trees, animals, and so on and so on. And this is something that he shares with Raja Shahada. I'm not sure if the audience are familiar with this guy, and I would really recommend that those who are not familiar with Palestinian works by Raja Shahada to see more about this ecological, eco-critical perspective on the conflict in Palestine. We can't hear you, Elliot.
Sorry about that. A question from the audience asking, sorry, it just disappeared from my screen. Uh, this is from Amal Alauna asking, how are we, in light of the presentation you've made and the story you've just told us. Um, how are we supposed to confront ecocide in Gaza?
Uh, this is a good question, but I'm not sure if we are supposed to confront it. I think it's overstated a little bit, but I think in Palestine, for example, my university and the Najah National University started with an initiative to teach Gazan students online. And I mean, we worked extremely hard to uh, to educate or to use a certain curriculum that would benefit the students there, and they continue their education. I mean, in the especially there were many universities that were destroyed, as I showed the picture of Al Azhar University, which is one of the largest universities in Gaza. So we tried to come up with this initiative. People all over the world volunteered to educate students at Gaza universities. And I think in our narrative, and again, I refer to Rifat Al-Arir, if we must identify it to be a tale, he's an educator and so on. So through narrative, through art, and through writing about what's going on, and also in our determination to educate these people, to support their educational system and knowledge system, we are able to confront it in one way or another.
Okay, we've got lots of questions rolling in now. Here's an interesting lots. They're all interesting. I'm going to start with this one. Are there other Palestinian poets who have been influenced or inspired by Native American people's experience?
Great. I think this is really a great question. I remember Tamim Barghouti, the son of Murid Barghouti and Radwa Ashur. He wrote a couple of poems about Native American oral traditions. One of them is about the buffalo, and he makes a great connection between Native American oral traditions and Palestinian traditions. So yes, I think Tamim Barghouti is another good Palestinian poet that made this connection.
Another question, and it has to do with the this one comes to us from Zaina Sharaya, um, who asks, to what extent did the Oslo Accords trigger Darwish to write this poem? And I just want to add to that. Right, this is the moment in the wake of a couple major events within Palestinian history. I'm thinking especially of the first Intifada,
Yeah,
and also, of course, the complete mistake of the PLO leadership
yeah,
regarding Saddam Hussein. And just to add one more thing to this is that this is shortly after one of Darwish's most famous and great poems, Abaruna fi Kalam Abar, right?
yeah,
So this is
yeah,
roughly at the same period in his career. Um,
yeah,
Tell us a little bit more about this sort of context in which he's coming to these thoughts
yeah.
and taking this turn. Yeah, great question.
Great. Yeah, yeah. I think this is really a valid question. I think I mentioned that Darwish was inspired by Chief Seattle's speech, right? Uh, which took place in 1854 during the westward expansion, and like the chief of Duwamish tribe, like addressing the white guy, يا سيد البيض إلى أين تأخذ شعبي وشعبك إلى أي هاوية. And this kind of poetry that Darwish seems to quote from Chief Seattle's speech, like يا سيد الخيل علم حصانك أن يعتذر لروح الطبيعة عما صنعت بأشجارنا يا أختي الشجرة قد عذبوك كما عذبوني. So I think again Darwish was very critical of this mistake, as Eliot suggested, and he thought of it as a surrender document, Oslo, and a false promise for an unrealized future. So and that's why he resigned. And he refused to be the Minister of Culture too. And he thought of it as like he tried to see like what will happen after signing this Oslo Accords as something that is similar to what happened to Native American people after Chief Seattle's speech in the last one of the last wars between white people and Native American people. And he wanted to say like I can't seem or I can't be optimistic at this point of time, like after all our struggle and all our efforts to materialize a Palestinian state and to like to ask for our own rights, and then we find like the PLO signing Oslo, then he started to be less optimistic and to connect like our fate in one way or another with the fate of or the destiny of Native American people, like the colonizers will take over everything and we will be displaced and we don't know what will happen to the future of the Palestinian state, as it were.
Great. So this a follow-up question comes to us from Tony Alessandrini,
Yeah,
asking about, could you say a little bit, just go on a little bit more in this vein to talk about how, where this poem fits within Darwish's career? So where, he's writing in the 80s, the Intifada erupts, that impacts him and then, as you're pointing out, the Oslo
yeah,
Accords impacts him politically, and then. But could you say a little bit more about how where does he go, especially with themes about ecocide
yeah.
during this period? Thanks.
Good. This is an excellent question, really, and yes, I think like before Oslo and even in the 1970s and before, like we hear Darwish like having a certain assertive tone, like سجل أنا عربي ورقم بطاقتي 50. I'll record I am an Arab, and like asserting nationalism, and he's more optimistic about Arab states supporting Palestinians. He was more optimistic about what the PLO can do for Palestinian people. He was optimistic with our resistance and where it will take us, and so on. Later on, in the 80s, I feel like Darwish was, especially he was in exile, and he was not sure what could happen in the future, and especially with the PLO, like moving from one Palestinian state into another until we found ourselves in Tunisia, like declaring the independence from outside Palestine, Darwish thinking whether this is um, applicable or not, thinking about the possibility of returning home. Then we find Darwish more of a postmodernist in the 1990s with Oslo, thinking about the fragmentation, about like thinking about exile from a different perspective, like saying, what can we do without exile? I refer here to a very interesting poem by Darwish, okay? Thinking about like humanizing the Israeli soldier, thinking about interfaith romance. So he started thinking about Palestinian existence, Palestinian nationalism uh, from different perspectives, sometimes critical, sometimes cynical, sometimes uncertain, anxious, and this is reflected in his poetry, especially in late 1990s. Until, I referred here to The Silence for the Sake of Gaza, which is a poem that he wrote 2 years before he passed away. And he seems to be like like supporting resistance more than anything else. Like saying here, I quoted, if me find the quotation very quickly. Uh, for example, saying the only value for the occupied is the extent of his resistance to occupation, which could take I say here, yes, the only, and I don't have time to share like something from the poem, but he's saying like Gaza has nothing to do but then to explode and to fight against Israeli settler colonialism and to use every single means that it has to defend itself. Again, this is 2 years before he died. We witnessed at that time the blockade over Gaza and the wars over Gaza and so on. So I think we can see like he's not that consistent in his attitude, in his perspective, and that was changing according to the status quo or to the political millennium.
Great. We have a question reflecting on the current genocide and utter destruction of Gaza. The question is about asking what Darwish might have felt about it. I'm not sure if that's a fair one since he's not here, but I do want to just reflect
Yeah,
on how and the question I think is kind of also about ecocide
yeah,
and the destruction of the natural world, which is coming through the poets that we in the United States
yeah,
have been hearing this theme through are people like Yahya Ashur, um, Rafat al-Arir at an earlier time, obviously. You can't read their poetry without encountering the utter destruction of the world.
yeah,
But also, I'm trying to think, Mossab Abu Toha, in
yeah,
his poetry, this is everywhere. And even in Fadi Joda,
yeah,
writing in the United States, but really
yeah,
um,
yeah,
paying close attention, and partly through his family and partly from the strength of his character and deep solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza, that
yeah,
ecocide is a huge
yeah, yeah,
huge part of his writing. I'm thinking of poems like Dedication. So for you, is it like what poets are writing in this vein right now,
yeah,
or it doesn't have to be poets, but just how has the current genocidal
yeah,
tragedy in Gaza, how is it create, what is the poetics that it's creating, and especially around this theme that I think you've made a great case that Darwish is thinking about this more than 30 years ago, 35 years ago. He's thinking about this in a kind of an original way.
yeah,
What's happening now with this theme
yeah,
and these concerns? Thanks.
yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate this question and I appreciate your elaboration, Elliot. So yes, like you mentioned Yahya Ashur, you mentioned Mus'ab Abu Toha, who's a friend of mine, and I met him in Chicago, and I listened to his poetry. It's interesting, honestly, and also Al-Kurd, Muhammad Al-Kurd, for example. I would also add that social media has been another interesting medium where there are people who are writing prose and poetry and like we like they are not like high profilic or their narratives are not have not been published yet. But I think Mus'ab Abu Toha or Al-Kurd may be implicitly referring to this ecocidal perspective. But I see on social media like certain posts by prominent figures and great writers, or maybe they are at their early career, but they refer to this. And actually, I was inspired by their posts to write about this perspective. And also, scholars decide they are aware of these components and they write about them and they address them in their posts and in their narratives. Uh, yes, I agree. We can't imagine what Darwish might say about it. But I think he was a prophetic in his narrative. And even in this poem that was written in early 1990s, like he like imagined and anticipated what might happen in Gaza. Again, I refer to his poem Silence for the Sake of Gaza, Silence for the Sake of Gaza, and honestly, like as if he's talking about what has happened in Gaza after October 7, 2023, connecting it with this the Red Indians penultimate speech to the white man, like he's talking about this ecocide, genocide, scholasticide, or what we might call Gazacide, because we are talking about Medicide and they are destroying everything in Gaza. So Darwish, I tried hard to like come up with certain quotations from the poem, but there are other quotations that we can refer to where Darwish anticipates that such an ecocide, destructive ecocide would happen. He's warning against it, and he anticipates a genocide might happen in Gaza, especially in Sinai for the sake of Gaza, because he's thinking that Palestinian people have tried every single means to fight back for their own rights, for self-determination, for autonomy, and like they are fighting for to elicit sympathy, to elicit advocacy, solidarity, and activism. And I think he and other poets you mentioned, like Masaba Butoha and of course Yahya Ashur and others, succeeded in getting the Palestinian voice heard everywhere, and to make the Palestinian narrative more visible and to gain more solidarity, activism, and advocacy. And this is what we saw in different places in the US in particular.
I just to follow to go back to the context of the Oslo Accords and the moment in which Darwish is writing this. It strikes me as we're talking about this that this is a speech, right, in the person of a Native American
Yeah,
speaking to the white settler colonial, and um, and that I'm just reflecting on the sadness of the address and the futility and like where it ends up, right? It says uh, where this ends up. There are dead who sleep in rooms you will build. There are dead who visit their past in places you demolish. By the way, we just need to note this fantastic translation is by Fadi Joda
yeah,
that we're working from.
yeah,
There are dead who visit their past in places you demolish. There are dead who pass over bridges you will construct. There are dead who illuminate the night of butterflies.
yeah,
These are figures he's tropes he's used before. Dead who
yeah,
will come by dawn to drink their tea with you, as peaceful as your rifles left them.
yeah,
So leave, you
yeah,
guests of the place.
yeah.
Right? This is going back to Abaruna fi Kalam Aber. Like you're
Yeah,
not settler colonials, you're passing through. You're not
yeah,
gonna, this is not gonna last.
yeah,
Right? And it seems like he's trying to get some sort of compensation here
yeah,
for the futility of the moment. But
yeah,
so leave, you guests of the place, some
yeah,
vacant seats for your host.
yeah,
Um, they will recount to you the terms of peace
yeah,
with the dead.
yeah,
What I mean, there's a futility in this conversation. It makes me think of the futility of sort of as a commentary on the futility of negotiating
yeah,
with your genocider,
yeah,
the futility of right.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's a gesture he comes back to in these
yeah,
poems from this moment where he's speaking. On the one hand, there's nothing, he has nothing but words to say.
yeah,
They can't dislodge this person he's speaking to. On the
yeah,
other, he can
yeah,
see a moment
yeah,
where this other
yeah,
this enemy will be gone.
yeah. This is very true. And yes, thank you for referring to عابرون في كلام عابر. And also, like another poem that he wrote about this futility, it's حاصر حصارك, besiege your siege, right?
Yeah.
Where he was addressing the PLO leaders, especially Arafat, Yasser Arafat, like saying حاصر حصارك لا مفر, right? Um, سقط القناع عن القناع لا إخوة لك يا أخي لا قلاع and so on. And he says وسقطت ذراعي فالتقطها واضرب عدوك به. I think it's very important because even it's ironic, like he's saying to BLO leaders, where are you taking us? What are you doing? And they were clapping. Like, I mean, it was something live. He's in front of them on a stage and he's saying to them, like, what are you doing? What on earth are you doing with Oslo Accords and so on? But like he's saying, like you should reconsider these accords before you sign them, and you should uh, like wait and like you should not rush into signing them. And like this is a difficult task in our history, and you should listen to like other intellectuals and other poets. And I think like Edward Said shared him a similar attitude at that time, and like addressing Arafat even in Arabic, saying like, "What are you doing? This is wrong. You should not do this." And then like the BLO waged a war against Said, and I'm not sure if the same war was again against Darwish, but like they wanted to like these intellectuals just talked about the futility here. They were against of this official procedure. Um, and also, I have to say, like when he says "موتى يموتون" and like talking about settler colonialism as something that will go away. عابرون في كلام عابر, because I think his perspective on history is great. Like he's trying to say that our history did not begin, sorry, with the Nakba. Okay, our history is not only exilic, like we also need to think about Israeli settler colonialism as an interruption in our history, and they will go one day. But our history like is rooted, like what Rashid Khaldi tried to say, like we're talking about like 3,000 years of civilization, of history, of culture, of economy. We had seaports before Israeli settler colonialism came to our land. We had our own agricultural system, educational system, and these are just coming, but they will go. And this is it's inevitable. It's a historical fact, and like any colonialism, one day they will go, and we will restore our health, and the land will restore its health, and the ecology will be great again, and everything will be quite right and in a place.
That I think, thank you for spelling that out. I think that's the kind of shift towards an ecological or ecological scale of time has with it this consolation to remind us in the present that this present moment is temporary, it's
Yeah,
fleeting, it will not remain forever, and
yeah,
those on top won't be there forever.
yeah. It's true.
Um, yeah, thank you for spelling that out.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that.
thank you.
Uh, w- One last question. I'm going to combine a couple questions that have come in.
Yeah,
One question kind of asks about this phrase that appears early on. Horsemaster, train your horse to apologize to nature's
yeah,
soul for what you've
yeah,
done to our trees. And
yeah,
uh, I don't know if this is from Nabil Alawi.
yeah,
I want to add to that, right? The fact, and that a fact that I think Darwish is very keenly aware of in this poem, is that the horse is introduced by the settler colonials,
yeah,
right? And then becomes part of, at least for some native peoples,
yeah,
part of their ecology,
yeah,
their world experience, right?
yeah,
So there's this irony of this horse that makes possible certain ways of living, especially on the Great Plains, but
yeah,
also kills. It changes that world, and in that sense, kills it. So so there's this paradox about nature in that if that horses are not natural in a right.
yeah,
Horses in North America are like the ecological framework is this is a new
yeah,
factor of
yeah,
this other way of being, of
yeah,
dominating and so on.
yeah,
I'm going to combine that with a question from Mo Qasim, who asks about who makes a similar point about how in Zionists make in Zionist developmentalist ideology of making the desert bloom, as you pointed out,
Yeah,
right? Which is this idea of taming and harnessing and conquering the land
yeah,
for human mastery, for Zionist
yeah,
mastery. But part of that is uh, this ecological move, like
yeah,
the reforestation,
yeah,
introducing foreign species of pine trees and so on, like that. And Mo Qasim points out that like this is a kind of ecologicalness that is part of a
yeah,
greenwashing
yeah,
project in favor
yeah,
of the Zionist project. So could you talk about some of
yeah,
these paradoxes around
yeah, sure.
ecology? What is natural? What
Yeah,
is
yeah,
colonial?
yeah.
Yeah.
Great. First, I would like to thank Dr. Nabil Alawi for asking this question. Actually, he is an ex-professor of mine and current colleague of mine. He's the one who sparked my interest in American literature. So thank you for this question. And I mean, like, يا سيد الخيل علم حصانك أن يعتذر لروح الطبيعة عما صنعت بأجارنا. Oh, master of horses, teach your horse to apologize to the spirit, etc. I think, yes, we need to connect it with another poem by Darwish. Actually, it's his tribute to Edward Said. When Said says to Darwish, trust neither the horse, no, yeah, لا أتذكر, this is what the poem says, or the elegy to Edward Said says, لا أتذكر أن ذهبنا إلى السينما في المساء ولكن سمعت هنودا قدامى ينادونني لا تثق بالحصان ولا بالحداثة. I don't remember that we went to the cinema that evening, but I heard brave Native American people calling me, trust neither the horse nor modernity. I think this is very important because, yeah, Elliot, as you said, like the horse was seen by Native American people as something introduced by the colonizers, and it's a tool for colonialism and transportation from one place to another, using it as one of the methods that I read by Native American people to scare people in the New World. And again, I refer to the White River Sioux story that says we were even closer to animals than we are now. And they say like the colonizers are welcome on the horse, and they have in one hand, I think, the torch, and the other a Bible or something like this. So you will be Christianized, converted to Christianity either by fire, by war, or by peace, and so on. I think there is a reference here to Trojan horse, like it has to do with deceit, trick, the trick of the colonizers. And also, I think like in traditional and classical post-colonial literature, we find the colonizers coming on a horse. Like, let's think of Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, right? Coming on a horse to Nigeria. In season migration to the north, the Christian missionary coming and meeting Mustafa Said while riding a horse and wearing a uniform, so he's on an official mission. Um, so I think like they wanted to, or Darwish wants to say how like these ecological components were misused by the colonizers and how they were put into the service of colonial powers. And like, I mean, I might simplify it a little bit by talking about examples like we see every day here in Palestine, like how they arrest a donkey, for example. The Israeli soldiers arresting a donkey or killing a donkey, or using a horse to chase Palestinian people, and so I think this is like how they used or misused nature and natural elements for the sake of their own domination, for the sake of their own hegemony. And this goes again with turning the desert to bloom. Like as I said, like they are using these natural elements and ecological components to impose their own domination, to restructure, to reconfigure to kill. And yes, they are killing even, and this is a romantic gesture here and a romantic attitude that both Native American people and romantic writers share, right? How we have infinity with the tree, we have an infinity with the animal. This is something that we find in romanticism and romantic literature, and even in Native American oral traditions and in early Native American literature. So we are highly connected with the tree. We are highly connected with animals. So we can't imagine that these animals are misused and they turn them against us.
With that, Ahmed, I want to thank you for a lovely presentation. And I also want to tell you how much I hope to see you one day on a panel with a Native American scholar
I would love that.
who could actually
Yeah.
inject more depth from our side in North America into this conversation you're pointing out. That'll be, I think, a truly exciting day.
Actually, we once had a panel hosted by a Najah University with two scholars of Native American literature. That was, I think, 3 years ago.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it was good. Thank you.
Anyway, and thank you to Jaren and the good folks at the MESA Global Academy for organizing this today, to Mimi Kirk and others at the CCAS, and wish you all a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we would like to thank Elliot Kolla for his collaboration with us, but also his wonderful guidance here and discussing and really combining the questions all together. Thank you so much. And Ahmed, it was a true pleasure. I think in academia we really use the, thought-provoking or timely, it's just a bit too much. But I think, like these words really are very accurate to describe this talk. I really enjoyed it myself.
Thank you. Thank you
And
very much.
I'm sure we're going to create more panels together.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. This is really so kind. And thank you for helping and for supporting me. Thank you, Elliot. This is really a wonderful conversation. Thank you for combining the questions, for rephrasing them. So that made it very successful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And do go and look at our website. Maybe we can collaborate. Maybe we would like to host Ahmed again in another institution, in another talk. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you. Bye.